Hello and thank you for joining us again here on Autistic Radio. Harry's Spectrum Voices Conversation is sponsored by coldpack.co.uk. Coldpack works with practitioners like chiropractors, osteopaths, physiotherapists, producing the cold pack that also advertises the practice with a logo and a website. coldpack.co.uk is also where you go to get a cold pack if you're a home user. Everything you spend is directed directly to the work here at Autistic Radio in partnership with Autistic Association, the Autistic Autism Charity. Hi Harry, the mic's hot for you. What do we have on the programme tonight?
Hello all, this is Harry's Facebook for Sunday the 16th of November 2025. This is where you go through the Facebook posts shared on Autistic Radio's Facebook page and the topics that are on them. The first post is from Jill Hawley, Neurodiversity University, which is a page, health and wellness website. I'm an AUDHD UK counsellor and supervisor, sharing safe information about diverse body and minds, mostly ADHD and autism related. And she shared the following. Yesterday, I spent the day with the creative counsellors at their annual conference. It was amazing. I loved every minute of it. Whilst this gorgeous group of people aren't an exclusive neurodivergent bunch, the place was spilling over with them. Everywhere I looked and listened, I saw and heard declarations of I'm ADHD, I'm autistic, and a few maybe I am too. Fallen Angels dance theatre were amazing. I was inspired and moved to tears with their performance. Katie at Healing Moon Art, Psychotherapy and EFT was fantastic, and I learned a lot about what I need by building my miniature safe space in clay. Masha's Sand and Sound Centre was her usual wonderfulness. Rihanna has to have a mention too for her comedic support. I laughed so hard. I learnt so much more about metaphors. I also met Nicola and discovered her resources, Nicola Hughes, Creative Counsellor. Go have a look if you wish. I met those I've known online for a while as well, as some new fabulous humans. Some are even listed on my counsellor recommendation post. I bought a gorgeous music creation, still unpaid for, it's coming. Received a gift bag, yet unopened, an ambassador of creators counsellors, and signed up to an awesome summer retreat. Honestly, I'm floating. Is it wrong to say I love them all? Thank you, creative counsellors, for the effort and joy you have put into creating this haven for creative counsellors. Jill. And the pictures shared was various photos of people during the day and creations and slide from the post's description. What's your thoughts?
I think one of the themes of that quite long post is that amongst the counsellors there were lots of autistic and ADHD people. There was a representation of the actual population amongst the people who were taking on this support role. Is that what, am I reading that right?
Yeah, that's what I liked about the post. It was like, even though it wasn't autism and ADHD specific, it was like a safe community where people did say because they felt comfortable enough to say whether they're autistic or ADHD. So it was a nice, safe community and also a positive one. And what was good about it is talking about creative things rather than just simple information. It's people being creative and people basically having fun and having a good time. Certainly based on the post that's been shared, which is great.
Yeah, I'd like to pick up on the being out and open, because that's what they're doing, isn't it? They're being out and proud and open and owning their identity with, some kind of strength there. I've just had the experience alongside you at this professional conference, and the number of people there who were in professional positions in these different organisations who were also declaring themselves as ADHD or autistic, I felt was quite a heartening thing to see. I did also have this experience that's different to this post, where somebody sat close to us and next to me, and you were there for the majority of the time, I believe, and they spilt out their heart, and they described in different circumstances how they were not disclosing, and in other frameworks to do with their employment they were disclosing, and how it had been quite a difficult process. So the post space where people feel open and out, it's a powerful thing, isn't it?
Yeah, totally agree. And from a personal point of view, being in that environment where you're hearing, sharing their experiences and talking about autism specifically, of course, in relation to myself, it feels a kind of warm kind of atmosphere, a kind of warm kind of a warm glow around the room, as I be a bit poetic here. It's and learning from it, and I think there's nothing better, or one of the best things I enjoy is listening to people's journeys. And there's nothing better when you hear one, even though there's a bump in the road in terms of their journeys, because that's what life is. It's like it kind of connects with you in many ways in a positive way. And you feel that sense of belonging as well. Because I've been to different events where I feel like the odd one out, or one of the one odd crowd out, if you know what I mean. So it felt like so inclusive and felt comfortable, even though there was a lot of challenges within, like being away from home and being in a place full of people, which I'm not used to. But it made it feel a lot more comfortable being amongst those people. The next post is from Autism Together, which is a charity organisation. Autism Together is one of the leading providers of autism services and support in the UK, and they shared the following. They've shared a link, and it's about finding out about Gina's journey into the workplace through our Pathway to Work scheme. Gina, one of the people we support at Autism Together, is a recent addition to our Pathway to Work scheme, which helps curate a route into the workplace for autistic adults interested in gaining employment. Gina is in placement at Wirral's family-friendly attraction Eureka Science and Discovery. The experience Gina is enjoying at her work placement has seen her confidence and belief in her own abilities grow significantly, thanks to gaining genuine workplace experience at a location she finds interesting and stimulating. shared some pictures, and there's a full story link on the post. What's people's thoughts?
You know, I think this is a high quality post from a charity in autism. It's not white saviour. Um, it it has incredibly respectful language. Um, it's speaking from the point of view of the client about what they are achieving and what they feel about it. It's it's a refreshing change from all the other stuff that we see that has a negativity about it. It's not saying they're fixing anything. It's telling us about Gina's journey, and Gina's at the centre of it. Um, I think that's really skillful marketing and skillful use, and it gives me confidence in that organisation, just from that one thing. I'm not sure if I know these people. Maybe actually we were familiar with them at a conference, but they seem to be getting it right here.
Yeah, it really did connect with me when I saw it and shared it because of the positive language. And looking at it again, the words of genuine workplace experience and the Pathway to Worker scheme, which helps create a route into the workplace for autistic adults who are interested in gaining employment. It's not just a tokenistic, this is something that must be done, but it's something for people who are interested in doing that will help you out. And it says that Gina is joining the work placement and the confidence and belief in their own abilities have grown significantly because it's a genuine workplace experience rather than going somewhere and just ticking a box, which can happen to many people. And maybe it's going to happen to me in many ways, if not a job, but certainly like a sort of kind of placement, just to suit the job centre criteria. And I like when it says the genuine workplace experience at a location she finds interesting and stimulating, and that's a big deal. It's you want to be stimulated, you want to have that good feeling to make all this worthwhile, and I just find it very powerful and strong and positive that this exists for people out there, and how we can genuinely can I give confidence to people that are looking for such a program?
Now, Harry, you weren't in the 444 PM drop-in group earlier, but I was, and Robbie was speaking incredibly powerfully, and he spoke to this exact situation, but from an opposite experience when everything was wrong about what the system tried to do. So it's really lovely to see that this seems to be something that is an antidote to the powerful story that I think I'm going to ask Robbie to actually edit out and put out as a separate thing. Um, yeah. Teresa, you were there too. Do you know the thing I'm meaning?
I do, and I thought about it as soon as, um, Harry started reading this. I immediately thought about that. I do think there's a lot to be learned here, and hope it can help people who've had these opposite experiences. I was actually wondering, is this um, group available to Robbie? I'm not sure where everybody is and what's available to them, but that was my thought. Is this something that he can access?
It's a project based in Wirral. I think is it Liverpool way, Merseyside way? And I think Robbie lives elsewhere. But Autism Together as an organisation, I think is UK-wide. But all just depends on what services are available in particular areas and where they are, of course. And that's always a balancing act that some organisations do in terms of funding and what they can provide and where, even though they may be UK-wide or even England-wide.
We were talking last week informally about things like this, and Jules made a point of, if you don't have something in your area, you might be able to bring something into your area. Now, any individual is not responsible for doing that for themselves, but it's a good solution some of the time. And we have some people here, including Robbie, who have strong voices that don't work in the system, but might work in terms of advocacy.
The next post is from AUDHD Unfiltered, which is a health and wellness website. Canadian Autistic, ADHD and Unfiltered, welcome into my brain in daily life. And they shared the following. I'm not difficult. I'm detailed. You call it nitpicking. I call it precision. My brain picks up on inconsistencies because it's wired to analyse patterns. That's not control, it's how I process information. When I correct something small, it's because small errors pile up and become chaos. Attention to detail is not criticism, it's care. You get to overlook, I get to overanalyse. Neither is wrong, but one of them keeps things from falling apart. Most people's thoughts.
Actually, Harry, I'm still reeling from what Teresa just said on a podcast that goes out to quite a large audience around the world, and the idea of over-promising to people who are autistic worries me entirely. There are lots of you out there, and my thought is to try to create models locally wherever you are as small cells in the autistic revolution. I think what Teresa says is right as far as what we can offer is networking out with you and finding different ways. But let's be clear, there's a lot of you and there's not that many of us.
Thanks, Jules. Anybody want to anybody get any thoughts about the previous post just been read for the edit?
Harry, I don't think I can see the post right now. I really liked it. Of course, I heard the word Canadian and I thought, oh, I have to know about this, but I can't see it, and I processed that way.
Are you there, Ray?
Ray's on another call at the moment. I can probably share it from my computer. Hang on a second.
Back up, I saw it. There. Down. You passed it again. There it is. Yeah, when I was listening to this person, I remembered something. In movies, I can be most annoying because I feel like I should be their post editor, when they go by something in a historic documentary and then I see a brand new window or something. It's nice to see this lovely and brief, almost minimalist post. That does resonate with me.
I think these sort of posts are quite helpful, especially if you're doing it for yourself, because autistic people, or some autistic people, are criticised for how they are, how the effort that goes into what people think is overdoing something, like over analysing, overthinking, and dare I say, over effort. And people just don't understand why that happens, and why don't you keep things simple? It's that lack of understanding of how some of our brains function, and how that sort of kind of activity, that kind of task, does help. It's not there to be a nuisance, it's not there to be a pest, and it's not there to say that other ways are wrong. It's just what's more suitable for yourself, and to ask for respect for different methods in doing things that people may think seem odd or strange.
I think that there's something in this post that's very, very close to me. And as a 60-year-old man, it's something that I've kind of been working on for the whole of my life, and it still is something that is difficult for people to look past, and still difficult for me to mask up or change in some ways. And it's this, my brain picks up on inconsistencies because it's wired to analyze patterns, and as soon as I'm processing this, it becomes vocal in some way usually, and the way it becomes vocal is in a way that is not intended to be socially acceptable. It's kind of like thinking out loud, perhaps, more than framing a conversation to take into account the other person you're trying to communicate with. And it really gets to people. It really does. And if I experience it from the other side of things, it really gets to me too. So it's fully understandable. It also says that's not control, and I agree with that sentiment, that is the impression this kind of behaviour gives people. And I'm a 60-year-old man, and I have been working with this since I was an adolescent, and too cocky and too clever by half and all that kind of shit, arrogant, whatever. And I've managed to soften it to some degree, but even in my own home, I'm hurting people's feelings accidentally.
The next post is from Own Time and Space, which is a page for children and parenting, supporting and empowering neurodiverse families through lived experience and professional expertise of psychology, education, SEN, Autism PG Cert, community groups, one-to-one family support, workshop and training on neurodiversion, workshop and training on neurodivergence, advocacy for SEN, and based in the UK. I think that's special education. And what they've shared is the following. There are still too many professionals seeing PDA as extreme behaviour and not a distressed child with high levels of anxiety. You're trying to control the child. Start trying to connect with the child, to what the child is communicating, and to build relationships. Remembering connection before correction. What's people's thoughts?
Yeah, two things. One, I chuckled a bit because of the prior post and how people might see us doing that, but totally differently. And when you're talking about children, yeah, it's sorry, my dog. Yeah, it hits me where it hurts.
The post is, well, they're all interesting, but the post does hit about this looking at the first line. There are still too many professionals that are seeing PDA as extreme behaviour and not a child who is distressed. It's just seen as extreme behaviour that must be tackled head on and cured and sorted, rather than trying to understand the distressed, the tension, the anxiety, and that can be very damaging, particularly for children. And it's just trying to get that understanding across. Mistakes are made and we understand that, but it can create trauma and that affects people for life in most cases, especially if it's in childhood. It's not something you forget. So it's very important that these messages are repeated time and time again.
Yeah, Harry, you were there with me when we listened to Dr. Giorgio Papadopoulos, and that's definitely not how you say her name. And for many years, she was a professional working, and she has come to realizations of how practice needs to change around PDA and how the behaviour of the professionals needs to change. And the whole of that conference was there, wrapped in attention at listening and trying to change the culture around this. So we've got this post really clearly describing the problem, and we've got this tiny glimmer of hope with this restraint reduction network group that the professionals out there do understand, they do get it, and they are trying to reach other professionals, but it's like walking upstream in a fast flowing salmon river.
The next post is from Robbie Prosser. He says the following: I have wasted my life trying to fit in. The so-called help offered by services like school, mental health service, GP and social care was never about helping me. It was always about making me compliant. I was never listened to. I always had someone else's agenda imposed upon me. While it has taken a long time, I have found my own support. It may not be enough, but it's all I have. I have one life. I have no intention of spending another moment working towards another person's goal. Whatever I have done have never made me happy for me. If they don't like me or help me when I'm asked, then I'm not going to bother. What's your thoughts? That was very powerful stuff, Robbie.
I think with you reading the words of Robbie's post and occasionally with us reading the words of Robbie's text here, Robbie's words shine through, and I don't really feel adequate to add anything to how he has expressed himself.
The next post is from Bridget McGrath Therapy. As a therapist, Bridget McGrath Therapy offers online art therapy, counselling, psychotherapy, and brain spotting, specialising in trauma, ADHD, autism, and LGBTQ+ affirming care. And said the following: Hi folks, I'm currently offering 3 new clients the opportunity to book up to 6 online sessions of brain spotting therapy for half price. All that I ask for you is to allow me to write up the sessions and anonymised case studies and provide some feedback on your experience at the end. Brain spotting is a mind-body therapy, which can be a gentle way of processing emotion and trauma which has not resolved over time, or through talk or other therapies. I provide a safe space for emotions to be assessed and processed, without the necessity to speak about specific traumatic events if you prefer not to. It can be helpful for supporting with current life challenges or historic issues such as unresolved trauma, loss, bereavement, or CPSD. Feel free to Facebook message me or email bridgetmcgraththerapy.com or contact me through my Facebook page, Bridget McGrath Therapy, for an initial free chat or to learn more about brain spotting. For more information about this, please visit my website. 60-minute sessions are usually £70, but will be available for £35 per session for the first 3 clients who book. This offer only covers online brain spotting, and all sessions must be accessed before the 3rd of December 2025. What's your thoughts? Anyone heard of this? Brain spotting.
I think we can say that we have this post there because it's an interesting post, and we're not able to check any of this out in any way. So people need to research and look at the Facebook page that goes with it, and decide if this is something that they want to involve themselves with. But we don't have any advice to give here. It's an interesting post, and we're putting it out there because it's an interesting post.
The next post is from Nikki Butler, the autistic geologist. Who's an entrepreneur, AUDHD, best-selling author, success and balanced success. AUDHD, best-selling author, success and balanced business strategist, mentor, speaker, autism and ADHD advocate, supporting neurodivergent people to stop living in hard mode and create a fulfilling life on their terms. They share the presentation, but they also shared the following information. ADHD versus autism versus AUDHD. Success is a blueprint. Success is a fingerprint, not a blueprint. If you're a late diagnosed neurodivergent entrepreneur and you're burnt out, it's probably because you're still trying to use the neurotypical definition of success. That hustle culture lie. It was never meant for your AUDHD brain. It just leads to chronic burnout. The corporate ladder, the 7-figure blueprint, the rigid 9 to 5, they were all designed for an operating system we don't run. We chase them, we catch them, and we still feel empty and exhausted. That's because success for us must be based on capacity, not conformity. Your genius is in your difference. Stop masking it and start designing a life and business strategy that works with your brain and not against it. True success requires radical authenticity. What's your thoughts on this? I found it quite interesting, its language and approach.
I think this is my first exposure to this, and there's a lot here to think about. There's a lot to get your head around.
Yeah, it's a fair point, Jules. It is something, even when I was sharing it and even talking about it now, it's like, it's more like that sort of attraction of interest. And I was just wondering, while sharing it, if anyone has any experience of it, or if they feel that the language is positive or negative, or any thoughts at all. I mean, looking at the presentation itself, the ADHD versus autism versus AUDHD, and they was talking about you were sold a hard mode definition and the measures of success and the stuff it's basically said in it supporting information I've just read out. It's saying that things are done in such a way that it goes against the grain of autistic people and people with ADHD. And there is another way. And by doing another way doesn't mean that you're unable to do something. It's just you're doing something different. I just like the approach and the positive language that it comes out. But yeah, right, it's something that feels very new, and it's very new to me, and I've not a lot to say on it myself, in fairness. But it's something worth sharing on the page itself, of course, and something that I hope to revisit.
I suppose there's something about this that I find difficult. The last sentence. Stop masking it and start designing a life and business strategy that works with your brain, not against it. True success requires radical authenticity. And yeah, okay. Revolutionary talk. Dangerous talk, in fact. In my experience in business, it's necessary to mask whether you are neurotypical or any kind of neurodivergence, because the capitalist system is the capitalist system as it's set up. If you are in conventional business, the concept of being out loud and proud, whatever minority you are, is likely to cause you issues and retard progress in those structures. I do, however, understand the idea behind it and the call to action to actually be authentic, and I myself was lucky enough to be entrepreneurial enough to be in self-employment, which meant that I could control all these things and I could be more authentic, but I still masked in certain circumstances in business for all kinds of reasons. It's a big ask this person is making, but I do understand the sentiment behind it.
Yeah, I I've been both an entrepreneur, which seems to be who she's speaking to, and I've also been in the corporate world, which did burn me out eventually. I mean, I'm an achiever, so, and it was a time in history when they needed people who understood, the internet. But I don't know. They have so many kinds of corporate training that were so painful to go through for me. And also, even if you're an entrepreneur, you're still working with other people, and you can you can find yourself one day with a new set of clients or a new business partner or a new government in your country that does not want you being radical anymore. I don't know. I'm happy that I have a place now where I can be myself just because of the type of business I've now chosen. But I think in strict business, this might this might need to be sort of less radical of, do it just a bit or as much as you think is appropriate, because your next client, your next boss, your next government could come along and that's it.
I want to bring us up to date with the text here. There's a few people with concerns that we should not be seen to endorse any kind of therapy here. And please check out things before any post that we share becomes part of your life. Robbie says the neurotypical measure of success is capitalist measure of success, which is money.
Yeah, yeah. And to be honest, from a personal perspective, I hate that measurement. To be successful, it means that you've made money. And I don't mean like creating a living and doing well for yourself that way because you need money to live. But just like that's the kind of measurement point. If you don't make money or if you don't make as much money as someone else, that means you've failed. And that does bother me because there's more to life than money. But because of the capitalist society and the way it's set up, money matters so much. It's hard to avoid that sort of measurement, even when you're trying to be more balanced.
What's interesting to me is that there are various autistic people I know that have had careers and had entrepreneurial ideas, but when they got to a standard of living that they felt fitted them, they stopped trying to get more. They didn't, and the same for myself. Did other things instead. You know, that seems to be an autistic trait to do with these things.
One of the things I feel about self employment and other forms of relationship is I just don't like it when things go wrong. Now, most people will say to you, do your best, you know. You can't stop things maybe happening, you know, they may go wrong. But with business and things with value and relationships, when they go wrong, it's quite meaningful. And so the stress can get kind of off the scale. And so someone recently was asking me if I could, engage in sending them something over to North America. And it just brought back to me all the stresses I used to have in my self employed business, which was like, is this going to make it? How do I cover my back if it doesn't? The disappointment, the quality control, all these things. So, anyway.
Robbie says something very important in the text. Robbie says something very important in the text, and I totally agree with it. It is not worth sacrificing health for money. And that sounds simple, and it sounds something that you should abide by, but it's difficult to do so because of how things can go. But it's certainly something that you need to remind yourself time and time again, because they say without money, you've got nothing, but without health, you have nothing. And health is more important than money, or it certainly should be. The next post, I said it's going to be Divergent Mind as a text, but I'll say the next post we'll look at is a podcast classic, Revisit, an old podcast from a couple of years ago, 2023. And it's a podcast with Bridget McGrath and Brightfire CIC, non-profit organisation, mental health services for autistic and ADHDers, diagnosed or self-identified clients welcome. And what that podcast was about was obviously talking about Brightfire and how it's an autistic-led community interest company, CIC, providing mental health and well-being for autistic adults. And the topic was Bridget talking about closest to nature and art and the autistic identity. And there was also talk about an annual event as well. But the thing that I found interesting to this was the topic about art and nature and how that can be very therapeutic to many autistic people. Like myself, for instance, who have overactive minds, always planning ahead, and how art, even just by looking, not doing, or being within nature, amongst trees, amongst a field, a country park, the breeze, the colours, how that sort of things can be so helpful and relaxing. Even if actually not actually being out, but just actually maybe even sitting at home looking at a tree in the back garden. So that's why I'm quite keen on this. What's other people's thoughts?
Yes, Harry, I was looking at my window this morning doing the dishes, and I live in the middle of a house in the scheme, so it's like concrete jungle. But I've got squirrels, I've got foxes, I've got birds, I've got trees, I've got plants, I've got the seasons, I've got the weather. I thought to myself, what else do I bloody need? You know what I mean? Why am I okay? We'll all have our worries. We're trying to construct a reality in a world, but all that stuff out there's happening, and it's brilliant. Like that cartoon, that guy on the comedy show. It's brilliant. But no, it is. And I'm not a romantic about nature. I've learnt that over the decades that nature can be a bit brutal. Nature can be, you know, you can hurt yourself out there and stuff like that. If you have to take care. But there is an elemental thing about one of the best cures for depression ever discovered was to get out your house and go somewhere natural. Even just the fact of getting there, the effort, does something to your body and mind. And a walk, a hill, some different perspective where it's not, you're not the center of the world. It's you're just part of a world. And then art, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. In I think both nature and art scientifically have been proven to do you good. I think we talked about this a few times, like forest bathing, that there is something that trees do to even cure some or prevent some small illnesses, but for mental health, oh my goodness. And art too, I'm not sure it can ward off a cold, but it certainly can do something for your soul. And whenever I think, if I, going to the last post, if I had to make a choice between making more money or even ponder having everything I own taken away from me, I immediately just think, but the sun will rise and the sun will set. I'll be able to breathe and live in this beautiful world. So I'm not, so this is valuable. Also, I think this is the same therapist as a few posts ago.
Yes, it is. The reason that I posted about Bridget McGrath is because the podcast that was shared from a couple of years ago, it's a it's the first time that I've shared from her for quite a while, so I just thought it was quite nice to. So I deliberately looked for, because sometimes things are on your feed and you end up sharing on a regular basis, and then just the way things go, that they fall off the feed, and you don't forget. It's just that there's so many other things that you share. So it's good to sort of revisit people and organisations that we've shared before, just as as a refresher, especially if they've done something quite recently.
I used to take a lot of photographs when I first got a digital smartphone and I was out walking myself and then with the dog. And whenever we went anywhere, we would often like explore the environment around it. And I always used to say or write in my journal that, I had an open air space. I didn't need to rent an art space as an artist. I was living in one. Uh, and this came to a head when, we used to walk near a local arts centre and they were charging big fees for courses and tuition. And they felt inaccessible to me as a local community, even though they were producing some nice art. I just felt I couldn't engage, I couldn't find a way in there, I didn't recognise the people as a kind of relationship I could have. And yet I'm outside them in the ruins of like disused and abandoned buildings, taking these amazing photographs and just having this amazing life where I'm thrilled to bits by this engagement and interaction. And it's very healthy, of course, walking a dog, going through these things and all that. It's really good. And I thought, I've got this open air space, it's endless. And it made me think about art. Like, what is art? That there's this kind of system of art, and then there's just creation, there's just engagement. And it's all related to things like health, and it's all related to things like the other part of this question, which is like nature, whatever that is. It's like I see the ruins of an urban environment, a brown field with all these weeds popping up, surviving as nature. I mean, when you see bird colonies in abandoned buildings, it's incredible stuff.
Yeah, I find nature so powerful. I like art as well, but nature is art itself. Because I feel that sometimes I just feel this kind of stress ball at times. And don't get me wrong, I prefer, I do You know, I've come to accept that sort of kind of personality about myself, and it works most of the time. But it's good to know that there's things out there like nature and being amongst nature is, you know, can help kind of soothe the mind. And the thing that just frustrates me, and I think I keep saying this, is I don't do it enough. And I'm in an area, I live in an area where there's plenty of access to that. Even if the weather isn't that great, it's still worthwhile going out and you feel the fresh air, being amongst something that isn't evolving around you, as you were talking about, right? Because when I'm doing other things, it's like I feel that things are evolving around me and, you know, the focus on self. But if you're out and amongst and just do something that's not planned completely, it just feels more relaxed and more settled. And I really do enjoy that. This will be the last post. Thanks everyone for taking part tonight. It's been another good conversation as always. And thanks to everyone that shared these posts that we've talked about tonight. If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have any topics to talk about like we have this evening. So this is Harry's Facebook for Sunday, the 16th of November, 2025. Here every Sunday, 5:55 p.m. UK time. And I look forward to another one next week. So thank you once again. I'll hand over to Jules.
So it's time to go straight back to Harry for the second part of the Spectrum Voices 555. Over to you, Harry.